as I was saying, this presentation uses gender as an example to illustrate the extent to which cultural norms are present in our visual rhetoric. And cultural norms are present in our visual rhetoric, as I already said, because the people who make this stuff know that it's going to work with their target audience. They know their target audience is going to recognize, these cultural norms of masculinity right away. These particular values that we have for what constitutes a properly masculine person in our society. And they make these toys for boys on purpose, right? To sell them on a particular version of masculinity. So what the people who make these toys and then market these toys in these ads to little boys are doing is they're drawing on the values that little boys have already because they're products of culture for strength, and musculature, really, really big, And the way you can tell that the people producing these toys and then trying to sell these toys know that little boys value strength because it's a cultural value for little boys that we all are aware of, whether or not we share it, we're aware of it, is the way these things get bigger, right? Because you guys all know, how advertising and consumer culture works. If you've got all the stuff you want, if you're happy with your body, you're not going to be buying more stuff, so that you can match the ideal. If you're good, then you're not a customer for these people, and they want as many people to be customers as possible. So they need to make us uncomfortable with what we have and what we are. That's why these things keep getting bigger. All right. That's why Hugh Jackman doesn't look, we don't think this guy looks as good as this guy. We used to think this guy looks great, right? And that's information for you about how culture affects you. That's information for you about how culture affects the broader culture, even if you think you're immune to it. And maybe you are immune to this message if you're a guy, or if you're a woman, right? Because heterosexual women are also being trained up to prefer this Hugh Jackman over this Hugh Jackman, because we are being bombarded by these images in our culture. All right, so the point for us is that you can read that. You can see that happening and you can analyze it and evaluate it. That's the point. Okay, let me make this stuff bigger. And you guys are going to help me remember where I left off. Did we talk about this slide already? I can't remember. Yeah, we did. Okay, so let me move on to the next one now that I'm done summarizing what we've been doing. Okay, we talked about this one too. Poor actual human being Hugh Jackman. He just can't do it. He tried really hard. He tried really hard. Oh, we talked about these. I'm remembering now. Okay, you can see how these shift. We're being sold a version of femininity here. Okay, whether or not we can approximate it, this body type is like 2% females naturally have this body type. Okay, but if you don't have it, you want it. Okay, and then as I said, I'm remembering now what I said last week. Kim Kardashian and, larger, curvier people in our popular culture. I don't know what to call the Kardashians. They're not models. They're not artists. They're just business people, right? And I'm sorry, I apologize to any fans out there of the Kardashians. Clearly, I am not one. Okay, is this where we left off? And am I yelling? I have to get used to my new headphones. Am I being too loud? Take that as a no. Did we talk about these guys? This is where we left off, yes? Heads nodding yes? Thumbs up?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we recognize these guys back to ideal masculinity, right? They're big, they're bulky. Who are these two fellas? What are their names? What's this guy's name? His real name?
Arnold? I could never pronounce his last name.
Schwarzenegger. That's understandable. Okay, Arnold Schwarzenegger, right? The Governator. For he was California is an interesting state. He was the governor of California for a time, and he wasn't that bad. He wasn't that bad. He was a pretty good Republican governor, as they go. And who's this guy? Boop, boop, boop. Anybody know this fella?
Sylvester Stallone?
Thank you. Yes. Ladies, why don't any of the fellas in this meeting respond to who these guys are? They're aimed at you. Where are all the fellas in this meeting? Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Hi, Dylan. So these two guys, right, this is, I think, the Predator, one of the Predators, and this is a Rambo, right? There were several because people really liked these movies, so they made more. Okay. And people really liked these movies because these movies and the image of masculinity that was represented in these films was appealing to the target audience. Okay, so this little note right here, the repetition of visual elements or pattern of representation. We said we can generalize if we can see a pattern that we can observe throughout our culture allows us to generalize about cultural values that these images draw on because they're out there already, right? They're drawing on them. And then they're reinforced by being repeated over and over. That reinforces them. And then they're exaggerated, as I said, to perpetuate and convey their message. Okay? That's why the exaggeration occurs that's observable, because they got to keep that message going. So here are patterns in female representation that we can see in our culture. Right? This is called the recumbent position, where a woman is leaning back. Okay? And this is a piece of visual rhetoric, okay, that we can read and analyze and evaluate. What is the message for women? Because these are all ads that are aimed at women. What's the message for women being conveyed by the positioning of the body this way, you guys? What's your impression of these women? How would you characterize in language, okay, how they look? They look nice. They look pretty. They look clean. What? What do you guys think? How do they look, you guys? What do you think they're trying to do? What kind of message do you think they're trying to send to women? I mean, this one, the message is buy these jeans, right? That's the text, but there's a subtext. There's a message underneath the one on the surface. That's what subtext means. The message underneath the one on the surface is buy these jeans because. Because why? Okay, let's move to a different slide. I think you guys will get it. All right, and this explains what I was what I was asking you about, but I'm going to move on to this one. This one's a little bit more overt because these messages are getting more and more and more and more obvious. Okay, so what's the message to women in this image? It's also for jeans. I guess this is a polo shirt as well. I guess the whole outfit is polo. I don't know.
I wasn't sure about Dengue about the other slide, but like in the years, you could see like they had less and less clothing too, but we're kind of in the same position. And then like
Yes.
with these ones, it's like almost, I mean, it's more obvious, like you said, there's less clothing and they're just kind of promoting, I guess, looking slim and sexy.
That's it. Okay. And those two things go together, right? The slimness is less important than the sexiness. Okay. The sexiness is the main thing that is being sold to women here, right? And why do women want to look sexy, you guys? What is their interest? Remember, I said the target audience shares a set of interests, values, beliefs, concerns, attitudes. What interest is shared by women in the target audience for these ads that makes them want to look sexy? Remember, they're selling stuff to women here. And why? Why are women going to want this stuff? This is not a trick question. The answer is obvious. Should I be more specific? Heterosexual women. Why? Why do heterosexual women want this stuff?
For men.
That's it. Thank you. You know, I know you guys know this. I know you know this, and you're being really, either you're being really careful, right, not to generalize about all women and what they want, but that is exactly what I'm asking you to do. That's what you have to do, and you can do it. It's okay to do it. Okay, so either you're being careful because you don't want to generalize, or you're being shy about saying something about sex, and I'm not sure which it is. But either way, you got to get over that. Okay. All right. Remember, I said up here, we can generalize about cultural values if we see a pattern. Okay. That doesn't mean everybody only who's heterosexual female, doesn't mean every heterosexual female only cares about attracting a man, but they do. And we all know it, right? We all know it. It's okay to talk about. Okay, moving on. So this position is the recumbent's position because, as Goffman here explains, it represents a proper social role for women. Okay, so what's a woman's place? A woman's place is in the recumbent position, leaning back. All right, and the way we can read this in our culture, because I just showed you a pattern of this recurring over and over and over and over and over. And I could find more and more recent ones, okay, just to bolster my point and justify my generalization, is that the proper social role for women in our culture is submissive and receptive. Okay, I'm ready, guys. I'm ready for you. I'm all clean. I'm all ready for you. Okay? Does that make sense? Whether or not you agree with me, does that make sense? There's someone on the phone. I don't know who it is because it's just a number showing up in your little box, but I can hear your background noise. Could you hit mute for me? Whoever's on the phone. Sorry not to address you by name. Hello? Somebody mute. I need someone to mute. Thank you. The noise stopped. Okay. Anyways, so that's the deal here. All right, with our gender example of the presence of cultural values and beliefs and concerns in this visual rhetoric. Okay, the way the people who have created these images craft these images to appeal to what they know their audience already values, already believes, is already interested in. Okay, and we did that when we were talking about the ring ad too. We talked about cultural values. What's the audience interested in? Here for women, they're interested in being seductive, right? And another thing, look at all of the covering of the mouth, you guys. We didn't talk about this with Taylor Swift, but Taylor Swift had her hand up by her face, okay? If you guys weren't aware of this pattern already, now you're gonna notice it everywhere. All right, it's still out there, you guys. All right, and the significance of that gesture, of that body language, it's conveying something. It's conveying, I'm kind of shy, but I'm also a lot of fun, and I won't say anything that will piss you off. Right? That's it. I will keep my views to myself. Raised eyebrows from Deanna. Yeah, but you know, these values are still out there in our culture, even though we utterly reject them consciously. They're in the subconscious of the culture. They've been embedded and reinforced for so long that they're still out there. All right, and look at this image. Do you guys, anybody know who this is? No? This is the now loathsome Sheryl Sandberg, executive at Facebook. Anybody heard of her lately because of the heinous operations at Facebook and their refusal to prevent their platform being used to manipulate people politically? Okay, so that's my opinion of Sheryl Sandberg. But just backing off of that a little bit, when this time cover was made, Sheryl Sandberg was, this is 2013, Sheryl Sandberg was, you know, one of a very few female not CEOs, but corporate executives working at a very high level in a very big, powerful corporation. All right, so she was, by many terms of our culture, our values, successful, right? But not for a woman. Not for a woman. Women aren't supposed to do that. Okay, so if you guys think that's over, think again. Okay, look at the way Sheryl Sandberg is positioned in this Time cover, the cover of Time magazine, a very prestigious honor for people. That's why Donald Trump really wants to be on the cover of Time magazine all the time. Okay, that's why he has a fake Time cover framed of himself that was never made. Okay, so they put her on the cover because she was an important person, and still is, in 2013. But part of the reason she was important in our culture is because she was rare. She was a rare female executive, right? And what do we think of powerful women in our culture, you guys? Go ahead, say it. I know none of you think that. But how does our culture treat women who are powerful? Just watch the last debate to see how our culture still treats women who are powerful and successful.
Like bossy or controlling.
That's right. Women aren't supposed to be in charge. They're supposed to be doing this, right? They're not supposed to be in charge. They're not supposed to be presenting themselves this way, in this upright, not recumbent stance. But look how fraught this is. Look how stressed out Sandberg is. Look how she's trying to navigate this position that she's in our culture. Okay, it's a tenuous position. It's a very narrow wall that she's trying to walk on here, a razor edge that she's trying to walk here between being assertive but not too assertive so that I don't scare you or so that you don't call me a B word, right? That's what we call women who are in charge in our culture. Look what they did to Hillary Clinton, you guys. Okay? You can't be too assertive. You can't be too shrill. If you guys watch the vice presidential debate, and even if you didn't, you might want to go back and just look at how much Kamala Harris smiled in that debate. It was crazy, you guys. Even when she was telling Mike Pence to stop interrupting her, she smiled. And she was coached to do that, you guys. Because if she didn't smile, he never smiled that whole debate. He doesn't have to. He doesn't have to smile. And he can interrupt all he wants. And he won't be accused of being a pushy female. Okay, but look at what she's doing with her hands here. This is all part of the visual rhetoric. She's standing straight up. She's not leaning back like she's supposed to, but she's still trying to navigate some sort of middle ground. She doesn't want to be too assertive. She's got her legs crossed. Okay, like I'm not going to hurt you. Don't worry. I'm hobbled, right? I'm not going to come at you. I'm just going to stand here and do my job. Okay, she's wearing red. Color is important. We haven't really talked that much about color yet, but color is important. Okay, she's wearing red. What's the symbolic meaning of red when a person wears it? Anybody know?
Passion?
Passion is part of it, definitely. Okay. What about her dress? Does her dress say passion? Is this dress a passionate dress? Is this a sexy dress?
Not really.
She's not trying to project herself as sexy at all, right? She's trying to project herself as powerful. Okay, red is a power color in this context, but not too powerful, hence the body language, right? And she's not a sex object. She doesn't want to be perceived that way. So she's got herself closed off, right? Not like these women. These women are not closed off at all. Okay, but you know, so she's trying to project some element of power here, but not too much, right? So her stance is not, if Donald Trump was on this cover, he'd be standing like this or something, right? He'd have his hands on his hips, his legs apart, okay? But she's not doing that. That's the power stance, right? With your hands on your hips or your arms folded in front of you, closed off. She's just sort of gently standing there, not threatening anybody, right? But she's serious and she's going to do her job. She's got a little half smile on her face. Okay, and we could say a lot more about this by drawing on culture to do this analysis. All right, more stuff about females and males when they're nude. Anybody recognize this nude? This one's more recent. 2000s?
Yeah.
The Titanic, yeah, that's Rose. That's the sketch that Leo drew of Kate in the Titanic. Here's some more recent nudes and the recumbent position that I promised you, right? Okay, but let's do a little comparison. And again, for the purpose of reading cultural values in these images, and I'm just using gender as the example. Your image might not have anything to do with gender in it, but it's to illustrate, okay, the presence of cultural values in these images. Okay, so here are some female nudes and semi-nudes. I mean, why? Why that? I don't know why. I mean, I do know, but, and we already talked about it. All right, so look at this one and then that one. What differences do you notice between this one and this one? It's like being at the optometrist, right? This one or this one? That one or that one? What differences do you notice between the way these bodies are presented? That one or that one?
I think the male pictures leave a little bit more mystery because they have their little tidy whities on.
Yeah, that's a tidy whitey. Yeah, okay. So they're not as unclothed, although this one has some clothes on. These two are totally nude, or it would appear so, even though we can only see half of her. Okay, So these are neuter, more nude. I don't know if neuter is a word. If it isn't, I just made it up. Okay. These have less clothes on, although this one has more clothes on. Okay, so that's one difference. What's another difference? And we can talk about why when we're done. Sorry, Diana,
like,
go ahead.
The posture of them, like the girls are like laying down and the guys are kind of in the tower stance, like you were saying, but not fully in it, but they're still standing and not even looking at you, looking away, and the girls are looking directly at you.
That's it. That's two big ones right there, and they mean a lot. Do you trust me? I'll tell you why. They mean a lot. They mean everything, you guys. They mean everything to our cultural values about gender. Okay, masculinity and femininity, proper roles for both. Okay, these two are literally erect, right? They're standing straight up and down. They're erect. Okay, they're powerful. They're potent. They're ready to go. Okay? And look at this stuff in the background. That's a penis. You guys, that thing in the back that he's leaning on. It just is. Okay? And it's on purpose. I'm telling you. And these messages, I think part of the reason you guys struggle, and students often do with these analyses, is because these things hit our subconscious. We don't read them consciously because, as I said before, they're so deeply embedded in our subconscious because we're products of this culture. This just shows the extent to which we're products. The fact that we don't even notice these things unless you're being asked to by me to notice them. Okay, so they're straight up and down. This woman is standing straight up, but she's still slumped, right? She's still slumped over. She still looks pretty submissive, doesn't she?
Yeah,
these guys do not.
Over,
sorry.
Kind of looking over his shoulder, so it kind of still makes her look like they're coming from behind or it's like scared.
Yeah, or please love me, right? I'm waiting for you. Okay, I'm obsessed with you. Aren't you obsessed with me? You should be, because I'm all nude. I'm all clean. I'm ready. Okay, that is all there. All right, it's all there on purpose. Same here. Okay, this person is ready for sexual intercourse. That's why she's like that. Dion's eyes are like, okay, it's there, it's on purpose. Same with this one. I said why, why? That's why. That's why. We need to see her panties so that we want to buy the stuff that she's selling. Okay. And this one is actually an ad for men. Those other ones that we were talking about were aimed at women, right? Trying to get women to buy the stuff that they would need in order to attract a man. But this one is actually for men. This one's aimed at men. Hey, men, if you wear this cologne, she'll lay out like that for you. This woman will do this. Not just any woman, but this woman. Okay? And as Deanna mentioned, these females are all looking at us. These guys aren't. They're not looking at us. They don't care. They don't care about us. They got their own thing, right? They're doing their own thing. So these are designed to appeal to men. These are designed to appeal to women, except for this one, which is designed to appeal to a man. All right, and they're looking at us almost pleadingly, if not seductively. Okay, on purpose, because that's what girls are supposed to do in our culture. And this is what guys are supposed to do. They're supposed to have their own thing and be potent and be distant, right? And that's a norm. Now, just for the record, okay, I'm not saying that's what we're supposed to do, right? I'm talking about culture, okay? These are not my values. This is not how I behave. And I don't think anybody else should behave this way either, okay? But I'm just saying, we're analyzing the image. We're interpreting and analyzing it. Okay, so we were just talking about this, what culture tells us about the cultural construction of gender and the qualities that are associated with those images for males and females. And we know, have we talked about norms in this class? Norm just means what's normal, what we're used to. And when something makes us uncomfortable, that's a little sign to us that our brain isn't used to it. And that's natural for us to be uncomfortable with things we're not used to, things that are strange to us, because we're hardwired for survival. Right back here. I can't remember this part in the brain. I can't remember what it's called. And people tell me, and I still forget. There are just some details I'm not good at retaining. Okay, and anatomy is one of them. The sciences are not my jam, as it were. Okay, but when things seem strange to us, that tells us that our brain is on alert. Oh shoot, that might be a threat, right? So look at these things. How do we feel about these? Are we comfortable with these images of these women doing these behaviors, caring about their pores? My husband has these. And it makes me laugh. Why is that? I should question that. Why do I think it's funny that my husband cares about his pores? All right, and these are girlfriends. They're just real close to each other, hanging out. I see some smirks on the faces I can see. And I'm just going to assume that the rest of you are at least a little uncomfortable with these images. Maybe especially this one. Okay? Because we're not used to seeing this, right? Still. And this is one of the ways you can know that gender has an impact on you. Because the more of this we see, the less of a problem with it we have. Okay, that's not so bad after all. We can get used to stuff like this, right? That's how we know we're being constructed by by culture. Okay, this guy better be clowning. He better be being silly, right? She's not. She's dead serious, right? She's going to sell that bathing suit to a woman who wants to attract a man who knows that this is how you do it. Okay, you wear that kind of outfit, that suit, and you arch your body that way. Why? Because you're making these more prominent, right? And this more prominent. Dudes aren't supposed to care about that. Okay, so he's just clowning around, we hope. Okay. Oh, these are grotesque, right? Giuliani is not supposed to be whispering in Hillary's ear. It's supposed to be the other way around, right? The former president, former leader of the free world is not supposed to be situated in the recumbent position. That's not his proper social role. And I don't know what's going on here. That's right. That's wrong, right? And it's wrong because it's bad Photoshop as well, but also because of our culture and our expectations for how males and females present themselves. Okay, so that's culture. This is history, right? This is when history is important to interpreting, understanding, and analyzing visual rhetoric. You've got to know what happened in the past to understand the argument this image is making. Does anybody recognize it? This is a famous image. It's called Migrant Mother. Anybody know what historical period it's from? I couldn't hear you, Deanna.
The Great Depression?
Yeah, exactly right. It's from the Great Depression. Okay, and what was going on in the Great Depression? Who do you think these people are? Who can you reasonably infer? I don't mean their names. I mean where they're from and what's happening to them. Where do you think they're from and what's happening to them? Why are they like this?
There's just a wave of famine of like the hardworking class. So like they ended up jobless and needing to find jobs. So they went like all kinds of places and would have to camp out in just areas altogether.
Yeah, That's what happened. There was something called the Dust Bowl that occurred, right? Because of bad farming practices and because of a drought. Those two things together made these people lose their farms in the Midwest. Their farms just dried up and would not produce. So they had to migrate, they had to move, right? And a lot of them came here, came to California. Some of them went to Oregon State, but they came here to the Central Coast, right? A lot of them came to Salinas. That's why Steinbeck wrote the stuff he wrote, which I'm assuming you guys are all familiar with. Does everybody at least know who Steinbeck is? I'm sure you read some Steinbeck in high school, right? Did you read The Grapes of Wrath? The big fat one? Cannery Row? Anybody read Cannery Row? Okay. The Grapes of Wrath is all about these people. It's all about these migrants. And how were they treated when they came to California? Were they
treated
welcomed?
like, no, they're treated like the immigrants of today, like claiming that they were stealing jobs.
Yeah. And like they were bringing disease. And some of them are even rapists. I'm sure some are good people, right? But they're rapists, they're criminals. That's how they were treated, right? Then in the 30s when they came to California. All right, so knowing that history is important to understanding the visual rhetoric of this image, its argument. What's the argument that you think this image is making? What's it saying about that situation and those people? Does it agree that they're a pestilence, that they're bringing disease, that they're stealing jobs? No, right? It's trying to humanize them. Because these are people who, when they came to California and other places on the West Coast, were treated as if they were less than human. So Dorothea Lange, the photographer, did a whole series on these people. She went around photographing them and trying to present them as human beings in dire circumstances, right? And you want to sympathize with this woman and these poor little dirty children. Okay, at least that's the intent of the person who made this image. All right, now look at this one and think about what Elizabeth just said. There's those same people, there's that same woman, okay? Juxtaposed, set side by side, so you have to compare this situation with this situation. California 1936 with Honduras 2009. Okay, or 2020. It's even worse. It just keeps getting worse because our country sucks. Okay, so, you know, why do people want to leave their home? Nobody wants to leave their home, right? People only leave their home when they have to. Okay, so if we could sympathize with these people who we know because we understand the history, okay, then the visual rhetoric is suggesting what? What's the argument this image is making? Just with the visual rhetoric. Don't pay attention to these words, just the visual rhetoric. What's it saying about these people? Because Dorothea Lange's project was successful in changing attitudes towards migrants from the Midwest to the West. So if we could come to see these people as human beings and not as a threat, then what about these people? We should see them the same way too. Do you agree that that's the argument this image is making? We should be able to see these people as human beings. Okay? And look at how the visual rhetoric conveys that argument. What are some specific details that convey that argument? That not just set these two things side by side so that we compare them to each other, but that emphasize the similarities between these two situations. What visual rhetoric emphasizes the similarities? What specific details?
Maybe children. These parents have high stakes.
Okay, they both have children, right? And there are exactly 2 children in both photographs. That's not an accident. Remember what I said last week? There are no accidents here. Everything is on purpose. Okay, so there are exactly 2 children in both photographs and a mother, right? Why do you think that is? Why take a picture of a mother? There are fathers who are migrating with children. Why feature the mother and the children, you guys? What cultural values are being appealed to here in the target audience? What do they care about? What do they believe? What are their attitudes? Why mothers and not fathers in these images? You want to say something, Deanna? Or no?
Because they're the ones who like maybe care for the kids or should be able to care for the kids.
That's right. Women are seen as primarily responsible for caring for children. And do they need help? Can they do it by themselves? What do you think the audience thinks when they see these women and children? What women and children are words that are said together a lot in our culture. And there's a reason for that. What do you think it is?
Women and children are considered the most vulnerable in our population.
That's right. They need the most help. They need to be protected, right? They can't do it themselves. But if there was a father in this image, it would have a different impact, wouldn't it? It would not have the same impact on the target audience. The target audience would be like, oh, let him handle it, right? He doesn't need our help. And he's probably a rapist, right? These things are out there. And, you know, once again, another disclaimer, when I identify them, that doesn't mean that I'm associated with them. I am not clearly associated with those views. I do not believe that women can't do it themselves. I did it myself for a long time. Okay, and I know you know a lot of women, maybe even yourselves, who are doing a whole hell of a lot by yourselves, right? Taking care of kids all by yourself. Maybe you had a single mother, okay? But that attitude is still out there in the culture, that women need help. Women need protecting and saving, and children need protecting and saving even more. So that's why women and children first, right? Save the women and children first. Dudes last, okay? What else about this image helps to convey its argument?
The sadness in their eyes. Like,
Okay, good. They're all wearing the same expression, right? All of them. Okay, we can't see these 2 little ones anymore. But in the other picture, this one was looking at the camera or looking towards the camera. She looks concerned, very concerned. She's got her hand on her face, right? And this one is looking right at us. See, you know, save me. She's looking right at us, implicating us. Right? And this woman has a creased forehead. This one has a creased forehead and a concerned expression on her face. This little guy has a concerned expression. Okay? Or little girl, I can't tell. I'm inferring it's a boy because of its hair. What else? What other pieces of rhetoric Visual details in the images help to convey the argument. There's a lot more we haven't talked about, you guys. A lot more details going on here. What other similarities do you notice?
The color.
Yeah, they're both black and white or grayscale pictures. They're not color, right? And this one was black and white because that's the only film that was available in the 30s is black and white film. But this one could have been in color. Why put it black and white? Why do that? What's the effect? There are a couple things I can think of. There's probably more I haven't thought of, though. What do you think the intended effect is of presenting this image in black and white?
It makes it look older.
Okay, it makes it look, it looks less different than this, right? The intention here is to make these look as same as possible. And if this one was color, then it would look more different from this one. Okay, what else? What's another effect of black and white on the viewer versus color? What's the mood of these images? Is it happy and upbeat? It's the opposite of that, right? It's somber, it's grave, it's heavy, right? Black and white does that. Black and white generates a mood of seriousness. This is a serious issue. It's not a happy pink and red and blue issue. Okay, it's a serious issue, dark issue. Okay, I'm going to unpack these for you because I need to move on. But another important element of visual rhetoric here is the arrangement of the details in the images. Okay, the mother is in the center. The mother is in the center. The children are on either side of the mother. Okay, that's on purpose. Again, to increase the similarities between these two situations visually, so that you see them as more closely related. So that if you could care about these people, then you can care about these people. Does that make sense? Okay, and historical context is super important to understanding the argument this image is making and to analyzing it. All right, purpose, I'm not going to go through that. We talked about the purpose of this image, right? It's not to convince, me to go climb on the anchor of a ship, it's to get my money, right? So on the surface, it may seem that the purpose of this image is to get people to agree with Greenpeace, but the target audience already agrees, right? The target audience already shares Greenpeace's values. So that means the purpose is something else. The purpose is to get the target audience to support Greenpeace financially. All right, other elements used in visual rhetoric. We've talked about framing. We haven't really talked about distance from the subject. Is it close up? Is it long shot, medium shot? Point of view, we talked a little bit about when we were looking at the ring ad, that the position of the viewer was above what was happening in the image. So that it was another way to convey that what we were looking at was a proposal. What's in the foreground? What's in the background? Selection is something that we're going to talk about. The use of visual tropes we'll talk about. Arrangement of elements we've talked about a couple times already. Juxtaposition we've talked about a lot. All right, so this is lighting. The lighting of these two images is a choice that the people created them and then published them, made on purpose to convey a particular idea about the subject of the image. Do you guys recognize this person? Who is it? Anybody know? Might have to get another one. This guy's kind of fading into obscurity, as he should these days. Nobody recognizes this person?
O.J. Simpson.
That's right, it's OJ. And why is OJ on the cover of these two magazines?
He had like this scandal. Forgot when the year, but yeah, he was accused of killing his wife.
That's right, and her special friend. That's why he killed her, because she had a special friend. She was being unfaithful. Okay, so these two magazines want to portray that differently, and they use lighting to help them portray an attitude about this thing that happened, an attitude towards OJ. Okay, the lighting in this one is intended to convey OJ as a somewhat sympathetic character, that it's a tragedy what happened to him. All right, I don't think it works. What do you guys think? Do you think the darkening of this image, you can see that it was darkened, right? This is his mugshot. It hasn't been altered at all, or very much. But this one has been darkened. It's easy to see, right? Do you guys see that? It's been made darker. And why? You know, what's the effect, you guys, that darkening this image has? How does it make OJ look? Does it make him look more sympathetic, as was the intention? Jenny, what do you think? Does this image make OJ look more sympathetic or no? Because they darkened it. Jenny? Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead, Jenny. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah.
And you guys can chat at me too if you don't want to speak. If you have some technical reason for not using your microphone, you can type in chat to respond to me when I ask you a question. Jenny, do you understand my question?
Yes. Yeah. The other pictures looks like he's some sympathetic.
You think he's more sympathetic because
Yeah.
they darkened the picture? Okay, so maybe it worked. I would argue otherwise. I would argue that it doesn't make him look more sympathetic. And
Oh.
often the darkening of an image makes the subject who's been made darker look more sinister, right? And often that's the intention, is to make the subject of the picture look scarier, look more threatening. All right, but his eyelids are kind of droopy here, and maybe that makes him look like sad OJ. I don't know. I think it makes him look more sinister. What do you think, Yesenia?
I also
Do you think that the darkening of this,
does look sympathetic.
you do, it makes him look more sympathetic? Okay, all right. I'm kind of polling you guys because I'm just checking my own perceptions. And you know, either interpretation is valid as long as you support it, right? If you're doing an analysis of the lighting in your image and you want to read that choice in one way, then just make sure that you support it. Okay, I think this makes OJ look more sinister because, right? Or I think this makes OJ look more sympathetic because, for example. Dylan, how about you? Do you think it makes him look more sinister or more sympathetic? The difference in lighting here. Dylan, are you there? Hello.
I'm here.
Are you thinking?
Yeah.
What do you think?
The pictures give like a real ominous feeling.
Ominous. Okay, good. That's what I thought too. I thought ominous, right? But like I said, either interpretation is valid as long as you support it. But so what I'm pushing you guys to do is something that you're going to need to do for your image. And that is evaluate whether or not the image has been successful in creating the effect that it intended to create, right? In persuading its audience and using all of the details successfully to target and persuade an audience. So my argument here would be that the intended effect of this was not successful, but you could argue that it was, if you want, as long as you support it. Okay, and here the intended effect is just to make him look like a villain, right? Like a murderer. And his eyes are just kind of dead here. Here his eyes are a little softer, so that would support the argument that it does make him more sympathetic. All right, but lighting is what this slide is trying to illustrate, the element of lighting in visual rhetoric. Here's another one that uses lighting. Okay, the intended effect, I believe, is a little more successful in this one. All right, and I'll let you know who made this image on the left here. It was posted on the NRA website. Do you guys know what the NRA is? NRA, National. Go ahead. Pardon? Sorry.
It's the Rifle Association?
Yeah, it's the National Rifle Association. Okay. So they made this image of President Obama and posted it on their website. Why? What's the argument they want this image to make about President Obama?
That he's bad.
That he's bad in a particular way, right? He's coming for your guns. That's because that's what the NRA cares about. And that's what their target audience is concerned about, their guns and values their guns, right? So the NRA was making the argument when President Obama was president that he was going to try and restrict individual ownership of firearms. And the NRA is against that, as you guys probably know. So they portray President Obama here as a tyrant, right? That is the intention. That's the intended effect, is to portray him as a tyrant. Okay, someone who's coming after your guns and your freedom. Okay, and I think it was successful for their target audience. Not for me, I don't agree, but just for the record. Just want to make sure everybody knows. I don't want you guys going to whoever, my dean, and saying, Susanna Carney-Waddy is a fascist. She would know you're lying because she knows me. But anyway, okay, so that my interpretation of this visual rhetoric and my evaluation of it is that it was successful in portraying him as a tyrant. Now, this is about selection. This is about what image you pick to portray someone or something. And we know who this person is, right? Everybody knows. Who's this person? This person. Come on, someone say her name. Say her name.
Hillary Clinton.
Thank you. Thank you for saying her name. She's still here. Although you wouldn't think so after what she experienced in 2016. Okay, so there are literally millions of pictures of Hillary Clinton available, right? People have taken millions and millions and millions of pictures of Hillary Clinton. But Breitbart, remember Breitbart from our conversation about the polar bear? Breitbart picked this one of Hillary to put on their website, to go with an article critical of her, right? And you can see why. She looks terrifying here. She looks like she's going to bite this other person's head off, right? And the Democratic National Committee picked this one of Hillary to put on their website because she looks, you know, grandmotherly here and like a nice person, okay, and friendly. All right, so that's selection. It's what picture you pick. Here's another one that uses selection, and I'm just going to tell you who this is. This is Michelle Bachmann, who's a former congresswoman from, I believe, Massachusetts, who was a Tea Party conservative, okay, representative during the Obama administration. She was on TV all the time talking about how evil the Obama administration was. That's the queen of rage, right? And the Tea Party is a political organization that was active during the Obama administration because they were afraid that the Obama administration was going to tax them too much or at all. They don't want to be taxed at all. And you guys remember what the Tea Party was, right? This is American history, folks. This is 11th grade, right? They still do that in 11th grade, American history? Okay, so what was the Tea Party in history?
The king was taxing the tea, and the colonists thought that he shouldn't be taxing them because they weren't getting any representation all the way out here in the New World.
Right. So what did they do?
They protested by dumping a bunch of the merchandise into the Boston Harbor.
Uh-huh. And we're all good with that kind of protest, right? The destruction of property is okay if it's in the past, but not now, right? If Antifa is destroying property now, that's terrorism, okay? But not, it was fine for the Tea Party to dump all of that private property into the harbor. That's what they did to protest the tax on tea. Okay, so that's why this organization calls itself the Tea Party. It's a throwback to that history. And Michelle Bachmann was part of that in Congress. All right, and this is a beautiful woman. Let me stop sharing my screen with you. Or, no, I didn't want to do that. I want to keep sharing my screen with you. Pardon me. Pardon me while I figure myself out. And let me try to escape. I have to hit my escape button like 500 times to escape. I want to escape. Escape. No. There we go. Christ. Sorry, I cussed. I don't know why it takes so long to do that. Okay, let me put this down and put this up. All right, I'm going to Google Michelle Bachmann so you guys can see her. B-A-C-H. Thank you, Google. And I want to look at images. All right, there she is. She's lovely, right? She's a lovely woman. She's a good-looking female person. She's got pretty blue eyes. Okay, oh, let me move my Zoom window so you guys can see. There she is. All right, so you get the picture, right? But there's that picture of her again. She looks crazy, right? Because that goes with the story. This is selection we're talking about. That goes with the story that Newsweek wanted to tell about Michelle Bachmann, that she's crazy, right? And I'm inclined to agree with them, but still, the selection of this image is not fair. Look, there's another one of her. She's beautiful, right? There are many nice pictures of her, as you can see, but they picked that one. They picked this one. Okay. All right, let me go back to my, if I can find it. There it is. All right, let me make this bigger again. Okay. All right, so that's selection, 2 examples of that. And I'm not going to spend too much time on this poem. Sometimes I do, but I'm running out of time here. But this is textual metaphor, where the words mean something else. All right, I'll just tell you what this poem is about. It's about being pregnant. Okay, she says, Sylvia Plath, I'm a riddle in 9 syllables. Okay, 9 months of pregnancy, right? Whoops, I went too far. This loaf's big with its yeasty rising. That's her stomach. Her stomach is the loaf rising because she's pregnant. Money's new minted in this fat purse. Again, that's her stomach. I'm a means, a stage, a cow in calf. She's going to give birth. Okay, so that's metaphor, textual metaphor. Here's visual metaphor. Okay, and a metaphor is a comparison. It's a figure of speech or visual rhetoric that is a comparison where one thing is the other thing. A simile, it uses like or as. It's a comparison of 2 things where one thing is like the other thing. But that kind of comparison distances the 2 things. A metaphor is a closer comparison between 2 things, that one thing is the other thing. All right, so what is the vodka bottle? What is it? This is a visual metaphor. The vodka bottle is something else, not just a vodka bottle. What is it?
It's a penis.
That's it. Thank you, Elizabeth. I needed you earlier, Elizabeth. Elizabeth is not afraid to say what's up. This is a flaccid male member. Isn't flaccid a great word? I love that word. It's so evocative. All right, it's a limp dick. All right, to put it more crudely. Right, and that's the argument this image is making. And it's making this argument in a context of advertising culture that presents alcohol consumption in a particular way, doesn't it, you guys? How is alcohol consumption usually presented in our culture? When you see ads for alcohol, what do they look like?
They look very fun.
Yeah, everybody's having a good time, right? Everybody looks beautiful. Everybody looks like they're going to be going home later with somebody, right? And having sexual intercourse and performing just fine, not being impotent. That's what impotence means. It means you can't perform, right? And there's this little quote from Shakespeare down here to add to it. All right, but the visual rhetoric says it all. Okay, you're not going to be able to perform if you get drunk. So this is an ad that it is designed to counter other marketing messages out there about alcohol and make fun of them and make the audience laugh. All right, let's see. Kind of running out of time here. So this is something called metonymy, which is another figure of speech or visual rhetoric. And this is, I hope everybody recognizes the Wall Street bull. This bull represents, it symbolizes Wall Street. Okay, and these two cops are guarding it. It would probably, or these three cops, it would probably help you to know where and when this image was taken. Okay, you know it was taken on Wall Street in New York City because that's where this thing is. And this thing is universally recognized. Everybody knows it in the whole world, knows this thing. So they're going to recognize it. All right, and it was taken during Occupy in 2013, Occupy Wall Street, which is a protest of the financial sector, okay, for crashing our economy. People went and occupied this area for months. They just camped out here, right, in order to, for the purpose of protesting financial crimes on the part of financial corporations on Wall Street, people who trade stocks. They crashed our economy. Okay, that's just a fact. That's not disputable. It's their fault. They did it. Okay, and lots of people lost their homes and their savings and everything and their jobs in that crash. So they're down there protesting. So the argument this image is making is that these cops should not be protecting this bull. They shouldn't be protecting this bull from the protesters, which is what they're doing. Their job is to protect the people from the criminals who crash the economy. Okay, so that's using, this image is using symbolism. The bull symbolizes Wall Street. And the cops are protecting Wall Street instead of protecting the people. All right, this image uses a figure of speech and visual rhetoric called synecdoche, which is part for whole. Do you guys recognize this ad campaign, Orbit? Have you seen ads for this gum? Dirty mouth, clean it up with Orbit. She has an Australian accent. No? Anyway, this is using synecdoche. This is just part of a guy that represents the whole guy. And then this is part of a woman that represents the whole woman. And we all know because of our culture what he's doing. What is he doing in this image?
Catcalling.
Yeah, he's catcalling her, right? So this gum company is using that part of our culture to sell its gum, right? That you can just clean up your mouth by chewing some Orbit. And it uses parts of people to make its argument. We don't need to see the whole woman because he doesn't care about the whole woman, right? He's looking at her legs. Okay. Here's some more symbolism. Okay, we know, I don't know why that's so unresolved. It's so blurry. Bad resolution. Okay, but we recognize this figure, right? This is Lady Justice. And we recognize this figure. This is Lady Liberty. They symbolize ideas. They're symbols of ideas, of justice and liberty. And oh, I wish this were true. When this was made, it made me happy to see it. Because who's this? Who's that guy? We know who this is, right? Who is it?
Trump.
That's Trump. Thank you. Thank you, Dylan. And we know because of the iconic, overly long red tie, okay, and the stupid hair. Sorry, you guys are going to know what my politics are if you don't already. But the idea here is that these two ideas, okay, represented by these two figures, are going to protect us from this person who wants to destroy them both. All right? And that has turned out to be less true than I hoped it would be a few years ago. But that's the visual rhetoric here, using symbolism. All right, this one uses analogy, which is a longer comparison between two things to make its argument. Right, this relationship between the US, represented by this guy clearly, and this, which is clearly a female gas pump, right, an abusive one. This relationship is supposed to be analogous to an abusive domestic relationship. And this is a cliche, right, where the abused person makes excuses for the abuser. All right, so that's using analogy. And this uses analogy too. Poor Angelo, I don't even know who this guy was, but he betrayed somebody. He betrayed this organization, the National Organization for Marriage, which is an anti-gay marriage organization. And he's being compared to these other two famous betrayers, Judas and Benedict Arnold, whom the people who made this image assume that target audience is going to know. Right? People are going to know who Judas is and what he did. People are going to know who Arnold is and what he did. He betrayed Washington, the father of our country. This one uses irony. All right? It uses irony in a particularly compelling way, I think. We know this slogan, right? The Just Do It slogan, you guys. Okay, and I'm calling on you less because I'm running out of time. And I want to get through these examples. But what's ironic about this image is that this little guy can't just do it. And this little guy is probably making the shoes, right? That's where the shoes are made, the Nike shoes. Furthermore, even more ironic, he doesn't have shoes at all. And he's pissing on Nike's ad. Okay, so that's irony. I'd like you guys to look at this slide on your own. I'm not going to go through it because it's just got some links, but this one is about genre, okay? It's about the style of the image, and that can mean something. And if genre is important to your image, I'll give you some feedback on genre on your pre-writing exercise. All right, here, let me escape this presentation. Move this over and go back to our schedule here. Okay, so what we need to do between now and when I see you again, which is down here, is develop a rough draft of this assignment. And like I said, I'm going to go in and give you some feedback on your pre-writing exercise, okay, so that you can apply that to developing your rough draft. And I'll do that fairly soon. Let's see when the rough draft is due. I can't remember whose is due when. Okay, so your rough draft is due on the 13th. So I have to hustle. I have to hustle and get you your feedback. Okay, so that you can apply that. Okay, so you have to submit your rough draft on the 13th by noon, please, you guys. By noon, so that I can assign you peer review. And then complete your peer reviews by the 14th so that your classmates can apply that feedback to finalizing their essay to submit by the 16th. All righty. Any questions about anything we talked about? Let me stop sharing now so I can see you all. No, we all good? All right. I hope you don't feel overwhelmed by all the stuff that I showed you. That wasn't the intention at any rate. The intention was just to cover, you know, what a range of possible approaches you can take to looking for things to analyze in your image, things to notice, things maybe you haven't thought about before in terms of looking at visual rhetoric and interpreting it and then analyzing and evaluating it. And that's what you need to do for essay 2. Okay, and you can look at that PowerPoint some more if you want. Oops. Okay, I don't want to do that anyway. I can't minimize. Christ, let me move this down so I can see my screen. Oop, I just cussed again in Zoom. I'm getting really terrible. I'm getting lax. Yeah, so this, let me share my screen with you again and show you where to find it if you want to look at it. It's right here, okay? This is where that slideshow is that I've been showing you. And I didn't get all the way through it, so you can look at it again and look at some of those links if you want. You can also just find it in files right here, okay? In files. I think I have it under essay 2. Yeah, it's in here. It's right there. Okay? Any questions, folks, before I let you go? About anything? Okay. All right, couple minutes early. I'm going to go ahead and sign off now and let you get to work. Yay, right? All right. Contact me if you run into any troubles. I'll talk to you next week. Have a good one. All righty? Bye, folks.